welcome back to Senior Living Simplified. I'm your host, Christina Hodak. Today we're going to tackle a topic that's a little different than what we've discussed in previous episodes. Today we're going to talk about staying in your home when you have some senior care needs. There's lots of different options out there, so that's why we're trying to tackle each one of them episode by episode. So you don't always have to go into a formal senior living setting. Some people get really unnerved by that. They want to stay in their home as long as possible. Totally understand that option. And so it's companies like Care Crew, which is my guest today. Brittany Hamilton is joining me. She is a certified dementia practitioner, and she is the director of business development for Care Crew. So we're going to ask her some questions that I've gotten through the years sitting with different families when they're thinking about options, whether it's going to be going into a more residential setting. Are they going to stay in their home? If they are going to stay in their home, what does that look like? How do I get that started? So Brittany, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
So you work as the director of business development for Care Crew.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Tell us a little bit about Care Crew, how it got started.
So we've been open officially to about 2.5 years now. One of our owners is nurse practitioner, Annie Solomon. We're actually very good friends. We're best friends. And about 2.5 years ago, she was doing transitional care and saw a need for a good home care agency.
So I'll pause you just a second. So for our audience, it's not clinical like we're used to the word. So
Okay.
What is transitional care?
So transitional care is going to be where they don't really want to be in a facility. They're wanting to be home. They may have came home from a hospital, or they may have came home from an acute facility like a skilled nursing home or a rehab facility.
Okay,
And
so
so
they're
they're not going
It's
to
discharge day. I
Right.
don't want to go to an assisted living. I don't want to go to a memory care. I want to go back home. So that's
Right.
the transitional care.
Right, and so they're wanting to know, okay, where do I go from here? A lot of times they don't know what to tell their primary care doctors. They don't know, okay, do I need to look for home care? Do I need to look for health care? Do I need to look for hospice? Is going to a community or assisted living an option? So she was a nurse practitioner going in and seeing these folks to try to help them kind of navigate their way, and was seeing a lack of a good home care agency of caregivers.
Yeah.
You know, there was always something wrong. There was always complaints, and it was kind of the repeated offenders and repeated complaints. So about 2.5 years ago now, we opened the agency, and our goal is to change the industry standard.
Yeah, I love
So,
that.
you know, we're different. You know, we're bright pink. We're not your typical hand holding hearts logos. You know, we have the big hero logo. And we're just trying to change the industry of what a caregiver is and what all can a caregiver provide, whether it's at home or it's at assisted living. A lot of people don't know that. You know, you could have a family member in assisted living or a memory care or independent living or even a rehab facility and still have a caregiver.
Yeah, and we'll get to that part of it too, because I definitely want to hit on that. There's so much more that an in-home care can provide than just kind of in the name. People think in-home,
Right.
they think their private home, but sometimes in-home is also where you are if you need something a little extra care-wise.
Exactly.
So when I sit with families, a lot of times they're teetering the line, or maybe they have in-home care right now, but it's not what they thought it was going to be. So can you talk about, I guess first we'll start from the beginning, how do people know when it's time to maybe consider in-home care?
So whether it's in home or it's at a facility, a lot of times where I spend a lot of time educating families is if a family member is having to take a lot of time off of work, or they've had to quit their job. We see that so many times. Or if it's spouses caring for themselves. We see that a lot. And now the mom is caring for dad, and you know, the wife is exhausted. You know, she's 60 something years old, and you know, now she's wearing down and she's getting ill more often. It's looking at your family dynamic. You know, we all want to pitch in and help. I took care of my grandmother for 4.5 years that had Alzheimer's, and that's what brought me to home care agencies.
Oh,
but
that's awesome.
it's one of those things where you have to look at the family dynamic. How often are you or a loved one having to take off work? Did you have to quit your job to care for your loved one? Is your dynamics where y'all are kind of butting heads, but you and your mom used to love each other and y'all were best friends, but now you're kind of hitting heads? Is mom and dad caring for each other and one's always staying sicker than the other? It's just acknowledging and kind of paying attention to the things that we don't really want to look at when it comes to our loved ones, because we all just want to jump in and help, right? That's just the circle of life.
Yeah.
But once we actually kind of look at the dynamics, people don't realize a family member will wear out a lot faster if they're caring for someone that's outside of their room.
Yeah, it is really taxing because they're caring for them and they're still carrying on with their own lives.
Right.
When it's different when you have somebody else coming in to do that, that's hired to do that. That is their job. They're not trying to juggle a job and care for their own family member and their own immediate
you're working a
family.
full-time job.
That's like 3 different things.
Exactly.
3 full-time jobs.
Exactly.
And you're going to wear out
very quickly.
I think you made a really good point, because I see this a lot when I'm sitting with families as well. It's very different when the adult children of a potential resident come in to sit with us versus a spouse that comes in. It's a strange dynamic because as a spouse, we feel like it is our job to take care of them no matter what. You take the vows, for better or for worse.
Exactly.
And that's still true, but sometimes it's reminding people that taking care of someone doesn't always mean that you're the one doing the physical labor 100% of the time. Taking care of someone can also be advocating to find the best option for care for your spouse or loved one. But it's a hard one.
It's very hard. It is very hard.
Because they do feel like they're giving up a little. We just try to direct that emotion and for them to recognize that you're going to have a better quality of relationship once you relinquish part of that. You still want to find someone, whether it be a care home company, whether it be a community setting, you still want to find somebody that you're partnering with. They're not taking it away from you. You're inviting them in.
And that's the biggest thing is getting the family member to understand that, whether it's the spouse or it's the adult child, is, one of the things that, my husband and I, when we go in and evaluate and do the assessments, the first thing that we tell them, we want you to be the wife again, right?
Yeah.
We want you to quit being the caretaker. You tell us how you expect things to be done, and our job is to be your assistant. Right, and that is where it's changing the industry of it. They're just a caregiver. We hate that word in our agency.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, the caregiver is the industry.
Yes, 100%.
It truly is the industry, because if the caregivers aren't the primary focus, then the residents, the patients, the clients, whatever you label them, then they can't be the focus if you're not putting emphasis on how great and important that caregiver role is, because they're the ones providing the care.
And sometimes they're not
making your company wonderful.
Exactly, and sometimes they're not a good fit, and that's okay. That's the importance of an agency, is because you can flip them. We can say, okay, we thought y'all were a good fit. Maybe it's religion, maybe it's personality, maybe it's politics, whatever it may be. We can flip them out. And we can reassign one to another case and then bring in someone differently. And that's another thing we're different about, is we try to personalize care. So, when we go sit down and assess them, it's okay, what's going on with mom and dad? What's going on with you? Are you the caretaker? Are you exhausted? Okay, well, what are you trying to accomplish? What is our goals for your loved one? What are the needs sets? It's not just coming in and providing bathing and grooming and medicine reminders and the typical things we all do in home care. It's how can we better assist you as the loved one, but also provide a higher quality of care for the actual client that we're caring for.
Because they also become companions as well. Like you said, you do try to do a custom fit as much as possible to matching up a caregiver to the right client, which I love, because we're all about the boutique care, personalizing. That.
I love that with y'all.
Yeah, that's why we work so well together. Like-minded people.
Exactly.
But it is a change in the industry because for so long there's just been this standard of this is what you get no matter who you are, but we're all such different people.
But that's
and have such
healthcare
different
period.
preferences.
Healthcare period's like in this, it's got this like cloud over it, is what I joke all the time with people of, this is the standard.
Yeah.
And it is with big franchises and big companies. There are rules. There are kind of a box you have to kind of stay in. And being family owned and operated is different because, just like with you guys, with being that more boutique style, we can take things other people can't, or we can assist with cases that have behavioral issues. It's being able to help people in all aspects and not just someone who's needing a caregiver or a companion. It's being able to provide services to a whole community and adapt as we see different changes needed.
So you mentioned you can handle someone with behaviors, and I know you're a certified dementia practitioner. Does your company train your staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Do y'all put them through dementia training as well?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm also a PAC trainer through Teepa Snow, which is a huge occupational therapist in the world. A lot of people don't know that, but I'm also a PAC trainer through her. So our team, we orientate every Thursday. We've never had a issue with employment, but we
That's
orientate
huge.
every
That's
Thursday, and one of the biggest things we do is we put everybody through they have to do it at new hire dementia training, and then we do in services every 3 months where I continuously sit down with them, train them on updated things, new things that I'm reading on, that I'm getting through, whether it's the state of Texas or through Teepa Snow, and educating them. We are a true dementia certified agency, meaning that our team is not just doing online educational courses. When they sit down with me and I do my training with them, they have to physically act out scenes. I literally make them feel it. Close your eyes and pretend like you can't see nothing, and examine, trying to put your jacket on, but you don't know where your jacket's at, or you're frustrated because, you got things on your hands. It's trying to get the caregiver, whether it's you, me, or anybody, to understand what someone in their client's shoes may feel like, whether it's dementia, whether it's PTSD, whether it's behavioral issues. We don't understand what's going on in somebody else's mind unless we try to put ourselves in those shoes. So we truly put our caregivers through, it doesn't matter if they've been in the field 30 years, things change daily. And so we make them truly go through dementia certifications before they ever touch our clients. And they have access to us 24/7. So if it's 2 a.m. and they have a client acting out and they've tried all their training and they're struggling, they can call and be like, hey, Brett, this is what's going on. What should I try doing? And we literally will sit there and troubleshoot together, because that's where a lot of lack of education is we train our caregivers and we put them to work. But what about at the 2 a.m.s when they're struggling?
What about when it gets real?
You're right.
Where are you
when
then?
it actually kicks in?
Yeah, I think that's great. I've attended several of Teepa Snow's conferences and gone through several different dementia trainings of my own. I started my career as a geriatric nurse and have always been in this in the geriatric end of the field, the healthcare field. But every time I sit through a training, a conference, I still learn something every single time. If you're paying attention, you're going to catch things, because we learn more about the disease process as time goes on all the time. So if you ever sat through one, if it's 5 years ago, I've been through that, do it again.
Exactly.
Go often. It's going to change. There's new techniques that come out. We learn different things about it. So I think that's great that you educate your staff that you hire. And by the way, you guys hire your own full-time staff, right?
Correct.
You're not contracting out to
Mm-mm.
agency staff where you don't know who they are. You guys are using your own. That's important to us too.
Yeah, it's very important. And even if, we've been on waiting lists before where, our influx of clients were just coming in this big wave versus the caregivers. And so we'll put them on a waiting list. We just explain to them, look, I want you to have the best caregiver that your family deserves. In order to do that, I'm not just placing anybody in your home. We joke all the time, we don't just hire warm bodies. We hire people who truly enjoy their job and want a career path as being in home care. So, that's very important when you're meeting with families, is we'd rather put them on a waiting list than just throw anybody in there that doesn't know the family's needs.
I think that's huge and speaks to the ethics of the company as well. You're more interested in providing the best care the right way than you are just in signing up people to turn a profit.
Exactly.
Just because maybe you've got a shoestring staff, if you've got more people coming in that you're signing up than you do staff to care for them, a lot of places would still just keep on signing them up and figure it out. They may run short or something. You see it happen all the time.
All the time.
So that's a huge thing that your potential clients should know about you guys, is that you want to make sure it's the right fit at the right time and you're prepared to take on that client. I love that.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have a need. You realize that you have a need. Maybe you're taking off more time. I think that's a really good tip that you gave earlier. It's not one I've thought about, but how much time are you taking off work? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's when you recognize that it's time to get some in-home care, or there could be cues about your loved one, like when you go over and visit, you notice that mom's in the same outfit.
Exactly.
The past 2 to 3 times that you've been over there,
biggest
maybe her hair's not washed.
The biggest one I always see is lack of bathing, or lack of groceries in the home, or meds missing. Mom, today's Wednesday, or overflowing. It's always one or the other. And it's like, okay, those are important things. Those are things, how long has that been going on for? Well, I'm not sure. And then that's when we're like, okay, time out.
Yeah.
We have a problem, especially with meds. We've seen several times, hospitals love when people forget to take meds, because what happens? We end up back in the hospital. We see a lot more frequent falls because they get dizzy if they overtake their medication, or maybe they're undertaking it and they're having those dizzy spells. So that's very important to us, especially being more of a clinical type agency, is focusing on those things. That way we can make sure that we are limiting those revisits to the hospital, the lack of medication and reminders, things like that. It's just showing and educating people where home care agencies really come into play.
Yeah. So what is it that home care can actually do? Because you've mentioned a lot of things. Some people may think that home care is only those basic needs, like you talked about earlier, bathing, dressing. But what all does that or what can it encompass? Because obviously not everyone needs everything you offer.
Exactly, and every agency is different. So our agency in particular, so we are RN delegated through the state of Texas as well. So we provide bathing, grooming, housekeeping, laundry, meal preparation, transportation. We actually have case management. A lot of people do not know that about Care Crew, but we do case management because we are RN delegated through the state of Texas underneath Annie.
So case management, again, for our listeners that don't know, that's having someone that is looking at this patient as a whole and seeing what all their needs are, and they're helping to coordinate, because maybe it's not just basic care that they're needing. Maybe they also go to dialysis.
Exactly. Or maybe we have a cancer patient who is decided they don't want to push for treatments anymore. Okay, well, have we discussed a hospice company with the family, or palliative care? So we case management, meaning we have a team outside of our caregivers. We have a leadership team who goes in, visits with the family every week. We stay on top of their doctor's appointments, so we remind the family, hey, we have a doctor appointment coming up. We stay on top of health, and we evaluate them from a healthcare side. Okay, is what are the things that we're lacking? Have meds been picked up? Okay, blood pressures are constantly dropping. We need to call the doctor and mention blood pressures are dropping more oftenly. Maybe meds need to be changed. And it's coordinating. I'm a big person into community partnerships.
You are, yeah.
And that community circle means a lot, because it's not just us. We strive on what's called continuity of care, which is having multiple touches of your loved one in the home, whether it's us, whether it's home health, whether it's hospice, whether it's physical therapy, whether it's wound care. We help with placement. So maybe we're at that point where we're spending a lot of money for home care, but we need to look at an assisted living. And so it's just advocating and educating.
That's wonderful. That's a a huge thing that not a lot of home care agencies offer, the case management piece, having all of these other connections. A lot of them are kind of tunnel focused on, we're just providing a caregiver to come in and do laundry and do housekeeping, maybe make a meal or two, make sure you take your medicine that's already punched out in a med planner, but y'all are looking at it as a whole life adjustment, which I think is great for people that do want to stay in their homes. I think that allows them to stay even longer than with a traditional in-home care company, because you guys are offering stuff that a lot of times a community setting is able to offer, because we do have partners that come in and we coordinate care and you have more eyes on someone, but your company is allowing that. So it does prolong that time that they stay in their own home where they do feel most comfortable. Can you talk about some instances, though, that eventually sometimes you can't stay in your home through end of life? There are occasions where some people aren't going to be able to have that. So what is a scenario? Do you have a story of someone? You don't have to say names, of course, to keep their privacy. But
HIPAA, we have to protect courtesies. But one particular situation is a memory care client that was of ours, and we were there for a long time. We originally had started caring for the husband, and we are one of those agencies that if we've got spouses in the home, we care for them both. Just that's who we are.
Sure.
And so we were caring for the husband originally, and he was a veteran, and he recently had passed, and we were already kind of caring for the wife, but she quickly declined after losing her husband, which, if you know dementia, it's a trauma setting.
Yeah.
And she became very behavioral, just well off the rim of not understanding what happened, where he went. He left her, all the crazy stories that come with dementia. And we were there 24/7. Our team was there constantly, and she had became, even with all the training our team goes through, it was a lot, and it was a lot of money on the daughters, and the environment was just no longer safe for her because the husband wasn't there. We're in a home, a big home, on property by ourselves, very well into our dementia process. And one night, one of our caregivers were using the bathroom, literally 2 minutes to go to tinkle. And in that time frame, she realized she was home alone and takes off out the back door.
Oh, no.
And this is about 6, 7 o'clock at night. And caregiver, of course, very quickly is able to kind of reconfigure the story and get her back in the house. But it was like, okay, it's getting cold outside. This was during the ice storms.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was like, okay, even with behavioral training, as you know, there's only so much you can do. And so it was like, okay, here's scenario one. Then the next day, she tries to do it again. And of course, the caregiver was right there that time. And so, we were able to redirect her. So I finally had to have the conversation with the family of, we need to look at a memory care.
Yeah.
And daughters were not about it. They were completely against it. And a couple days later, she gets out. Again, caregiver was trying to run to the restroom. Our caregivers, bless their hearts, they'll hold it until they can't.
Right? You're still human. We still have to do things.
And they will hold it till they cannot hold it anymore. And a different caregiver was using the restroom, and she got out that night into the back again. It was kind of her safe spot. We realized that's where she was running. That was her safe spot. And they called me, and she's like, I don't know how to get. She won't come back in this time. And I said, okay, it's cold. Let me get in the car. Of course, I live in Lindale, so give me some time. And
it's quite a ways away.
we were able to, get them redirected. In the meantime, I showed up. I called the daughter on my drive-in, which is about an hour. Called the daughter, and I said, look, we need to have this serious conversation. This has been a week's worth of stuff. I understand Daddy's gone, but Mama's not adjusting well.
It's just not safe.
It's anymore. Not safe. She's taken off looking for him into the yard where he normally is. And it's, our caregiver has to be able to have 2 minutes to use the restroom, and we can't lock her in the house. That's not right. It's not ethical, and so the daughter's like, if you do it, then let's just do it now. And I was like, okay, here I am driving in at 8 o'clock at night. All right, let's do it. And so we showed up, and the caregiver met me at the door, and I said, look, we're going to do this real fast. You're going to leave. I'm coming in. Her friend sent me. I'm going to go get chicken, and we're going to memory care. And that was the plan. I told the daughter, this is what we're doing. And we get there, and I told her, we're going to go get some chicken. So she's like, oh, okay. Completely forgets why she was trying to get out, right? Gets in our car. Driver, stop, of course, I'm going to get her chicken, right? So I stopped and get her chicken, and then we, dropped her off at memory care that night, and she has been there ever since. And it's one of those things, just telling families, like, when you introduce it and getting them to understand, but also getting them to realize, like, okay, this is the moment where we have to make a decision.
And then you do partnerships with other communities because you are so active in the community, and places to help guide them too as well. And that's still, you're still with the family through this whole process, whether they do get to stay in home and you guys continue to provide care. You help place them in a community if that's necessary, and maybe you even stay on with them through that transition period, because like you said, you can have staff in community settings as well as an additional support.
It's just educating, I spend most of my days doing that, just educating people of what home care is. Doesn't have to be at home, doesn't have to be at a facility. It's not just bathing and grooming. It's having that continuity of care, of knowing, and that support of knowing that you have someone that knows community partners you can trust, knows facilities you can trust, knowing where to navigate, that is the important part that's missing. I mean, in all over healthcare.
Well, you can definitely see the passion in what you do. I think that's something that sets your company, Care Crew, apart from so many others. And you don't only have passion for the in-home care process, but before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we mention you are a huge community advocate.
Yes.
And you also kind of spearhead coordinating events for another company that's very near and dear to your heart. Do you want to mention
that? I'm a military wife. My husband's been in 16 years, Air Force. And so we're always doing community events and ministries, and we were recently confronted about, I'm now the event coordinator for the state of Texas.
Congratulations.
For Veterans Creed Outdoors. And they're a nonprofit, 100%, who provides fishing, hunting, outdoor, just family trips for not just military, but first responders. So I'm very excited for that next step too.
Yeah, I think that's a great organization, and we definitely want to talk more about that later, because that needs its own highlight to talk more about that. Well, whether you are choosing to stay in your home long term when those needs start to arise and you hit that senior level in your life and need a little extra help, Care Crew is a wonderful option. Please reach out to the contact information on the screen to reach Brittany. She will absolutely guide you to the right solution for yourself or your family member. And as always, if you are looking for a community setting, I am the executive director of the Sage Oak, and we are assisted living and memory care. We are boutique care home options, and we would love to discuss that with you as well if you opt for a community setting, or maybe you have both of us. Maybe Care Crew comes in, helps you out while you transition into Sage Oak. Whatever your needs are, please continue to listen to the podcast. We hope to bring you good information on each episode to help you navigate more through this phase and to simplify your senior living options.